Welcome to Bourbon Taste-Offs, playoff brackets of the best whiskeys. Join us in our season-long quest to find our tastiest bourbon. Hello, thank you for joining us on this episode, which is episode number 11. We are your hosts, Todd, Dan, and Josh, and on this episode, we are going to be tasting finished cask bourbons. So I don't know, typically, obviously for bourbon, you have to age it in a new charred oak container, and then you're at your own leisure, you can put it over onto another finishing cask. Sometimes it's a port, a rum, cognac. I've heard Dan and I were at the liquor store the other day, and we were looking at like this Dexter one that has like finished in 200-year-old cherry wood and that kind of stuff. So all sorts of things you can age these things in. So we don't know what we have in front of us, and we're gonna give it a taste.
I don't even know if I've ever had one like this before. Maybe I have, and I don't know that, but I guess I'm leery of stuff that has some unique flavor to it. I feel like I don't like I don't like beer that's like cherry in it or peach or whatever it is. I just feel like I don't. Maybe I need to expand my horizons.
It's funny.
On the edge a little bit.
I was thinking Dan's probably not a cherry vodka type of person.
No, I don't. I drink black coffee. I like bourbon neat. I don't go for a lot of flavors. The only thing I tried recently, and this is just of a pure flavor thing, is I had an espresso for the first time. And I freaking loved it.
Mind blown, huh?
I was like, oh my God, I want a 12-ouncer of this. I was just like, this is so freaking good. I'd never had it before. And my wife's like, how do you never had an espresso before?
I'm kind of surprised as well.
I'm like, I don't know. Because I love black coffee. She's like, oh yeah, this is just black coffee times 10. And it was amazing. But they only give you like these little baby sample sizes of it. My son was telling me when he was traveled and was in Italy, he's like, you get 4 of them. You'd be like, oh, you just want to sit outside and have those all day.
Wired.
They just give you a thimble, an ounce.
Yeah, so do you know what Americano is?
No.
Have you ever heard of Americano?
It sounds familiar, right?
So an Americano is essentially an espresso, and then they just add hot water to it. So just dilute it a little bit. So that's, a lot of, like you go to Europe, they don't make drip coffee in Europe generally. So if you're like, hey, I want a 12-ounce coffee, what they'll do in Europe is actually do 2 shots of espresso and just add hot water.
Okay.
So that's an Americano.
Okay.
But I love that you welcome to the world of coffee.
Yeah.
Maybe we have an offshoot channel called Coffee Taste Off.
Right.
And then Cigar Taste Off.
And Cigar Taste Off.
Right.
Our wives will be like, hey, they're gonna start a YouTube channel that said, where'd our husbands go?
Have you ever had like a cigar and coffee in the morning, like when you first wake up?
Absolutely, it's delicious.
I would think that like my mouth wouldn't be ready for it, but I've done it a couple times. And I'm like, oh, I really like
it's
this.
It's good.
I've never done it. It sounds like our next Saturday trip is to Todd's patio with a little coffee and a cigar.
I don't know if he wants me there at 5:30 a.m. though. Dan's just out on his patio in his underwear.
I'm almost thinking of those cowboys back in the day, like just down in Texas, probably with their their heavy coffee and a stogie, like on an open range. That's like an ideal picture for me. Be blessed, just chilling out in the morning, 5 o'clock, watch the sun come up.
Sounds like
a
a
little
dream.
Coffee and a little cigar. Yeah,
that sounds awesome. What's your history of finished bourbons? Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? What do you think of it, Josh?
Hit or miss. I've had some really bad finished bourbons, and I've had some really good finished bourbons.
What would be an example of a really good one?
So Angel's Envy has a finished one in port.
I have some Angel's Envy at home. Are all Angel Envies finished?
As far as I know,
they.
I have one at home that I like.
Yeah.
I think their base is finished in port, and then they have then their $70-$80 one is finished in rum cask, and that
would be a rye as well, though.
Oh yeah, rye finished in rum, and that's super tasty. I mean, it tastes like maple syrup.
And we still have to pick what number is going against one.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna drink one. All right.
We are definitely going to start with one, though. You're right.
Okay. Well, pick away there, Joshi.
Yeah. Let's find out what we're going against. And we have had a winner actually finished in a Cabernet cask. Like our very first monthly winner was
The Red Cabin.
the Red Cabin, which was a finished product. Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So we're doing number 1 versus number 4.
Very good. Thank you, Josh.
So Dan, how does 1 taste? Overachiever over here.
He's ready to go.
So guys, quit the chit chat. Let's start drinking.
Drink. Well, actually, before we start,
Oh yeah.
cheers, fellas, to the start of another episode.
Cheers.
Enjoy.
It's really sweet.
Ooh, I smell the sweetness. I haven't even tasted it yet, but I bet it's sweet.
Like cherries.
Yeah.
Is there one that's cherry based, or is that the ones that?
As far as I know, the options were either port, rum, or cognac finished.
Hey, I'm gonna ask you a question. Is Angel's Envy in this group, Todd? It may or may not be.
Potentially.
Okay.
I actually have the rye with finished in rum, and I actually have the regular finished in port.
Okay. Cool. Are they both in here?
Very, very possible.
Hey, I feel like I'm dealing with a half deck of cards right now. You know what we're drinking.
Well, I mean, like we said, we have options, and then they're drawn.
Okay.
This was an option of 6. And
Oh,
we're
got it,
drinking
got it.
4, so it very well could be it. But yes, both the Angel's Envy offerings are very possible to be in here.
Yeah, I can tell.
I think I can tell as well.
Yeah, I went to Costco and last week, and they had the Angel's Envy finished in rum cask for $65. And the first time I bought that 4 years ago was $100. So it was awesome to see that come down a little
I
bit.
think bourbon is coming down a little bit. I wonder if the bubble is starting to pop a little.
I hope so. My wallet's hurting a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that fusion that we tried in another episode was when I first started, it was like $42, and it's at 60 now. I'm like, oh yeah, yikes. I mean, that's a 50% increase almost.
Yeah.
So what are you getting? Why do you think you might know or are mentioning what might be in here? What
A
are you
little bit
getting
of-
on the taste?
Yeah, a little bit of that maple syrup taste.
Yeah.
So I know that tastes pretty well. Now there's obviously the stuff that's finished might, in a rum cask or a port cask might have that general flavor. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never really done a comparison of multiple that have been finished in something. Dan, you seem thinking. Help me out. What's going on over there?
These are
Perplexed.
just such unique tastes. I'm trying to get my finger on my head wrapping around these tastes. I've moved on to 4 here. Is it 4 that we're doing?
Yeah.
And that's got to taste like, I don't know at all that flavor. I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't think I know that flavor. Well, and I guess I wouldn't know that flavor. It could be anyone.
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea what one was. And I think when I got it, I texted Josh and I'm like, oh, this tastes like fried chicken. Like I actually got like oil and like that like spicy, greasy like taste to it. But then
I didn't get any fried chicken there.
no,
I was thinking the same thing.
I didn't get any
No,
fried chicken.
But then when I was talking to him, he's like, oh no, it's more like maple,
Maple
syrup.
syrup.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that is what I taste.
I thought it was more cherryish. It tasted kind of cherryish to me.
The smell was definitely cherry.
I think it's because I've seen you eat chicken before, and you generally put maple syrup on.
Right.
I'm gonna start calling you Will Ferrell from Elf.
Right.
I do like bourbon glaze.
Waffle and fries.
I like bourbon glaze for like my
Waffle
chicken wings.
Yeah.
So I do have one picked.
Do you dislike any of them?
I actually like both of them. The one that I didn't pick, I wrote down light, a little bit lighter. Not. I do like it. It's a clean drink.
It is. Yeah, it's a shame that one of these has to lose.
All right. I got a winner, but I don't feel good about it. I'm not sure that I like it.
If you must twist my arm. All right, Dan. What?
Yeah, go ahead.
What don't you feel good about?
I picked one. Not because I loved it, because I just didn't like 4. 4 almost had like, this can maybe sound weird, and this is just an experiment we're getting together and doing from time to time, but 4 kind of reminded me of those single malts. It had some of that single malt. Is there single malt cast?
No.
No? Okay.
Nope. There's either, like I said,
It just had that kind of single malt taste to me. 4 did. So I pick 1.
I'm going to go. I agree. I would pick 1 as well. That just real sweet maple syrup or fried chicken taste is so good.
KFC fried chicken?
Right.
I also picked 1.
Yeah. No, I think 4 might be like maybe a cognac finished where it's like just like bourbon on other type of alcohol.
And I don't know much about this finishing process. So it's a bourbon. It's sat in a bourbon barrel for 3-4 years maybe, and in the last 6 months they've thrown it into a barrel that was already used to create cognac, and so it's absorbed some of that little cognac into it.
That's exactly the process. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Or the port.
And is it just to expand the market, or is there a clamoring for these products?
I mean, it doesn't take away from the actual definition of being a bourbon. So they still have that ability to call it a bourbon, but they get to finish it in something where they're not adding additives or adding flavors, but they're actually letting it partake of like pre-existing flavors. So there's certain rules, obviously, that you have to follow to be a bourbon, and they're being able to do this and not break any of those rules.
I wonder if the trend that we saw, 10 years ago with all the IPAs and all the different flavors, all the citrus and all these different things kind of have come over into the bourbon space. We're like, oh, let's experiment. A lot of experimentation.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yep.
No doubt. No doubt at all. I think sometimes they go too far.
But if you've never tried it, why
right.
you're not
beer's
gonna...
like 4 ingredients. It's like water, barley, malt, yeast. That's beer.
Right.
Then after that, that's just something else. And just personally, I always gravitate towards things that are just the most natural form of it. I mean, once in a while, something be, a summer shandy might be refreshing. A summer's got a little, but you don't want to be drinking 20 of those.
No.
Right. It's just, there's too much, And I don't know. That's just I kind of tend to lean towards these regular bourbons. I'm not saying if I come over here and Todd's like, oh, I got Azel's Envy, I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'd pass. But I think I must be simple, because if I go to the custard stand, unless there's some unique flavor, I'll get vanilla, and I think vanilla is fantastic. And I know that sounds plain, but I'm a plain dude, I guess. Black coffee, regular bourbon, regular beer, vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, somehow, I believe you, but you do have a pretty wide taste of bourbons you like, though. It's not like you're...
Think so?
It's not... Well, it's not like you're like light. I would just like the way you're describing it right now. You're like, hey, Miller Lite, Coors Light, Bud Light. Like, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you have the same. Hey, just give me my regular 4 Roses, and I'm good with that. You seem to have a pretty wide like. Oh man, this has a lot of flavor, a lot of smell, a lot of that. It's a little bit different with bourbon.
If I had one bourbon to drink,
well, let's hear this. I love this.
For the rest of the time, that'd be tough, but I can tell you what you just mentioned, that the 4 Roses single barrel would be in that group. It's just phenomenal product. Always available at a easy price point. I don't know how it doesn't. It must do really well. Does it do well in blinds when you guys?
I think it does. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a fantastic product. Do you ever see it like do they ever throw out like a 15-year? I mean, how many products does 4 Roses have? 4 Roses, like the regular plastic jug.
I know about the regular. They've got the
small batch select, and the single barrel. But then the what's the dark labeled single barrel? The one that's on your counter right now.
Right. We had a tasting, obviously, that was the single barrel, barrel proof.
Barrel proof.
Yeah. So it had the
that was really good.
It had extra heat, where it has more heat than a typical single barrel would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So I love that statement. I haven't, up until a couple episodes previous, never tried the Four Roses single barrel, barrel proof, or I mean just a single barrel in general. And I always loved the small batch select. So for me, I mean, to your point, I could drink the small batch select, just pile them up. Wouldn't be my number one, but it's something I would have no problem. Like, hey, Josh, you only have one bourbon to drink the rest of your life. Well, that's damn good bourbon.
Right.
So
right. I mean,
cool.
one you could get every day, and and not too proofy, where two of them and you feel like going to night or anything. So yeah, the Russell's 10 would be in that same bracket for me.
Yeah. Going back to beer, I love when beer is actually aged in bourbon barrels.
Do you really?
Yeah, that Kentucky bourbon ale. And,
the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
It will punch you, though, because it's about 9-10 proof.
Yeah.
So be careful. It's not the same as Coors Light at 4%.
Right.
But it also kind of forces you to drink it, like sipping it almost like a bourbon anyway, though. You're not taking 24 cans of it and just downing it.
Right. Not drinking a 30 rack.
You're just simply enjoying the flavor trip that it's taking you on.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a local brewery in Milwaukee called Lakefront Brewery, and they have one called Fuel Cafe, and it's like stout meets coffee, and that was phenomenal.
That is a good beer.
So then I really like those. Hey, bourbon meets stout or bourbon meets porter. That's kind of the best of both worlds for me.
Yeah.
We'll get you there, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I'm a work in progress.
So we're moving on to 2 and 3. Have you guys smelled or tasted number 2 yet? I think this has to be one of the rum, or not rum, port. I think this has to be one of the port finishes.
Well, way to give it away.
I'm just guessing. Like I'm just, yeah. There's like 3 or 4 port options, and then a rum and a cognac, I think. So I'm gonna share that knowledge that I have, so it's all even playing field.
Three is definitely different than 2.
And maybe that is the cognac. I don't know. I'm getting a wine. I am getting a port finish on it, I think. Move over to 3. So now, in an earlier episode, Josh, you were talking about, you'd go to Vegas and every once in a while gamble with playing poker or playing craps.
Oh, yeah.
I had never been to Vegas, and so for my 50th birthday, which was a couple years ago, we ended up going out. We took a week and we decided we're taking a train from Milwaukee to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Arizona, and then a shuttle bus to Vegas. And it was a trip of a lifetime. I loved it, had a great time. My wife bought me, I'd never been on a helicopter before, I'd never been on a train before, so this whole thing was like never done it before type of trip, and so it was like bucket list after bucket list after bucket list. And we actually took a helicopter ride into the Grand Canyon, landed, had a picnic, flew out of there, flew over the strip, and I video of it all, and we'll play it right now.
Sounds like an episode of The Bachelor or something. Todd on a date, helicopter ride for a sweet picnic, and
it was awesome.
Yeah, I'm just enamored, man. I can't wait to see this video. I've flown over the Grand Canyon like 32,000 or 3,200 feet in the air, or 32,000 feet, and I always look down. I was like, oh, there it is. The closest I've gotten is the Hoover Dam, so I've only heard amazing things about it.
I did the Southwest Rim where they have that horseshoe glass thing that you can walk out the sky.
Oh, wow.
That must have been scary.
Did you do it?
Yeah, oh yeah. When it was first open. Oh. It literally was first open.
Did you have them harness you, or?
No, you just walk. You have to take your shoes off. They don't want you to scratch it.
Got it.
But yeah, you feel it's a little unsettling at first because you're walking out there and it's clear, and you go out 100 yards.
So, are you afraid of heights?
I'm afraid of falling.
Yes.
More than the heights part of it. I would say I'm not afraid of heights so much that I won't do something. Like I accept the challenge of the fear of it. I would never want to not do it because of fear overtaking me. But I'm cautious. Like I'm stepping, like, okay. And you get your legs about it and you feel better. And I think my oldest son probably was 14, 15. And we went with my dad. My parents lived in Vegas. And my son went out there and was jumping up and down. And people were freaking out. And the guy who was the tour guide was just like, oh, yeah, try it out. You can land a plane on this. And he's jumping up and down. And people are just freaking out. Tell him to stop. Tell him to stop. It was quite an adventure.
The Stratosphere has that roller coaster. I always thought.
My kids have done all that.
Yeah.
Roller coaster goes straight down.
Yep.
Or there's a claw thing that spins off.
Sure.
And it goes off the edge and spins around.
Yeah.
I have nothing to prove. No.
Exactly.
Way.
I don't need that experience.
So that, I saw like a video the other day, and the question was, would you rather go down to the Mariana Trench in the ocean, or go up to space? Which one would you rather go to?
Whichever one has the least chance of crushing you.
So mine was, I have no desire to go in the ocean.
Right.
I'm like, hey, that pressure
Right.
will get you. So I would much rather go to space.
I don't know that I have a choice. They both seem kind of daunting.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice.
They were saying that one submarine that ended up getting crushed that went down to the Titanic. They were saying the pressure is equal to like the weight of an Empire State Building on every side of that thing.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Like,
super scary, man.
no thanks.
So, I guess that kind of answers the question. I would rather be on the Grand Canyon on that little glass thing than in the ocean.
Yeah. The skywalk, they call it. It's fantastic. It's something to see.
Yeah, it was such a fun trip. So have you guys tried 2 and 3? I've done both. I'm getting torn between each one. I almost think they're both finished in port.
I'm okay with either.
I am
It tastes
too.
pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
They do. Yeah. I'm like going back and forth. Like,
So having these 4, are you guys saying, man, I really like these cast finish or these different finishes, and I'm at the liquor store and I want to buy more of these, or ambivalent, or what are you thinking of finished stuff like this?
I'm personally a fan. I really am. I'd like. Yeah, you get a ton of complexity with just aging it in the charred new oak, and depending on whatever your distillate is and the grain profile of it, but you add a little bit of extra finishing on it, and it just, to me, it can definitely be used to hide flaws in bourbon.
I never even thought of it that way.
But I also think it adds another dimension to it, where if you really do have a quality product going into these finished barrels, then it is just adding that extra complexity where it's like it just adds another step up.
Right. I don't know if this would be analogous or not, but I like products that are double oaked, like the Woodford Reserve double oaked, where they send it back in again. I think Beam has a double oak that's really good. I would say I like that process. I'm not sure that I like this. I don't think having these 4 so far, I'm going to the liquor store on the way home saying I want to get one of these. They just have a flavor that isn't drawing me to them. They're not horrible. They're not like the single malts where I didn't like them at all. Well, this is really, really showing where I am, isn't it? Because wasn't a fan of the single malts. Don't like the ryes. Not super. I regular bourbon. Aged about 10 years. I think I think we pinpointed kind of where I fall in the bourbon world, which is surprising to me. I didn't think I was going to be this kind of narrow-minded, but I think after, 11 weeks of doing this, I'm pretty consistent on the ones that I pick out that I kind of really enjoy.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it narrow-minded. I would,
I would just call it knowing what you like.
yeah, knowing what you like.
There's a Whistle Pig 12, which a little pricey, $130, but really tasty. So I have one of those, and I think one of these times I'll bring it, let you try that.
That's a rye?
Yeah, but it's a rye finished.
It's finished in a bunch of different
Right.
kind of wine casks.
Right, and it is, like, for me, it's one of my faves, but it's, like I said,
Sure.
I'm not going around buying, when you can get a bottle of Buffalo Trace for $30, and I gotta trade 4 of those for one bottle.
Right.
So for me, but that was one of my best friend put me onto that one, and just love it. So, but yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. It's almost kind of like those, to his point, to Todd's point, the imperfections. And I've always, back in the day when I liked wine, and all these places were popping up wine, in their garages, and you travel, you're like, oh, try this wine from this place, and they would just dump a shit ton of sugar in, right? And then it would hide the imperfections. So that was like kind of, rewinding a little bit. I hadn't even thought about that, but I think that sometimes crappy bourbon could be dumped in a pour cask. Like, oh yeah, like this is really good now, hiding the imperfections. In this case, though, I don't, there's one of these that I think for me, it kind of rises above the rest, and they figured out how to do it.
Yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're dropping down, because I do agree.
I picked 3.
Okay. I picked 2.
I picked 2. I mean, yeah, we're not going to follow your lead when you just say you're not a fan of them.
Right. But they taste similar, right?
Very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah.
There's just a little edge, a little bit more flavor, I think, in number 2.
I agree.
I wrote flat for number 3.
Yeah, there was just some aftertaste that was just a little bit different. And,
So we're going to taste 1 versus 2.
yeah.
Dan's like, I don't even know why we're doing this. You guys already know what you want.
Yeah, I thought that was supposed to be I'm the swing vote.
Off camera, we determined that Todd is the swing vote because he'll either side with me or he'll side with Dan. So we're going to rename this podcast Todd's Choices.
Yeah, I mean, there has been times, like I said, that you two both picked one and then I picked a different one, but you're right, it's been rare. So it does seem like I'm the swing vote. Kind of get my way more than not.
All right, I got my vote.
I also got mine.
Yeah, I had mine already for a little
Wow,
while.
this is going to be the fastest podcast.
It is. But
It's a good thing. It's a good thing we got that video of Vegas in here.
Exactly.
Were there any of these that you guys didn't like?
I'd say no.
I'd say
But
no.
but I didn't need to have 3 or 4 again.
4 would have been my least, I think. And you know what we didn't do? We didn't bring the bottles out.
Well, we can bring them out.
Should we bring them out? We didn't make a choice yet. Should we talk
let-
about the losers of the?
Yeah, let's talk about the losers.
All right. So they came back out, and I guess we'll talk about what went against number 1 first, which was number 4, and that was a Redemption. It's a cask series. It's a straight bourbon whiskey finished in cognac casks. So, and it's 99 proof. So that is something that I thought it might be, which I'll just pat myself on the back for actually having
Oh, I got you.
taste buds. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Surprisingly, number 3, which we did not push through, is the Angel's Envy, finished in port wine, 43.3% alcohol.
So that's a pretty low proof, too.
Yeah.
Batch number, so 92I, and bottle number 7326. And I wonder, based on even this, if the fact that they call it different batches and different bottle numbers, if there's a variance in Angel's Envy similar to the Fusion series that we were talking about. Because I think you and I, Todd, were a little bit surprised that this Angel's Envy got pushed out.
Yeah, for sure. Angel's Envy, going back to how we got into bourbon, like one of my very first bourbons was Angel's Envy. And I was like, thankfully, because it's like, I got into this extra sweetening of it, where it helps people new to bourbon get into it because it's like, oh, it's finished in these sweeter options, which gets people into tasting it before the heat of the typical bourbon. But I agree, that was a surprise that it came out, and I'm also kind of surprised that they actually have a bottle number on it, because typically a bottle number would be something that a single barrel would do, and not necessarily a blend. Which if it doesn't have it on the label, that it must be a blend of some sort. So I'm kind of surprised with that bottle number. But Dan was not a fan of either of these. He said he might drink them.
I've had the Angel's Envy before. I mean, clearly, it was my least favorite of all of them. Yeah, I don't know. Not a fan.
Now, do you know what cognac is?
Like brandy?
Yeah. Like, how do you make brandy? How do you make cognac? Do you know what it is?
I have no clue.
Okay, so brandy is distilled wine, and then cognac is distilled port, which is a type of wine, but it's already a stronger, more alcohol-tasting type of wine. So you're just taking more mild, making brandy, and taking more alcohol forward and making cognac. So that's the difference
And it
right
sits in
there.
a cask, absorbs it,
Correct.
and they've taken some bourbon and thrown it in there to.
For
pull
this
some
one, yeah,
flavors.
but typical just regular cognac,
Sure.
it's the distilled port. So that's interesting. I mean, I really liked the Angel's Envy. That was it seemed real similar to the one we picked though. So I'm really curious to see what number 2 is that beat that one out. But it might not be the winner though. So we're gonna compare 1 and 2.
I got a winner here.
Perfect. And I think we both said that we did pretty early on.
Yeah, we have a winner. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll start it out.
I'm curious to hear what Dan's winner is.
Yeah, I am too.
1. I picked 1. Why is that? Is that not what you guys would pick? Is that the opposite of what you guys were at?
No,
No,
I pick one.
I picked one. I knew what it was right away.
I think I know what it is too.
I was like, damn.
Tell me
It's
why you
fried
guys like
chicken.
I think we both think that it's the Angel's Envy
Rye.
rye
Finished in rum.
Finished in rum.
it. Okay. It definitely has some spice to it.
Yeah, it's the rye.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so good. It's like you got that spicy high rye and then finished in a rum, which is a really sweet type of liquor. And it just gives it that big, like maple syrup. Fried chicken, maple syrup taste, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of my
When you're doing your hashtag, make sure you do KFC in there.
Okay.
KFC. KFC.
I'll
Canadian maple syrup.
Right.
put in a drive-through in my house.
Right.
What do you want? Chicken? No, just that bourbon.
Bourbon.
Right.
So we'll bring these out and we'll see if we're in fact correct or off our rocker.
So we've brought out our winner and our second place.
We did. So we'll start off talking about our second place. Now, this thing did beat the Angel's Envy port finished, and this happens to be a Breckenridge whiskey from Colorado, and it's also finished in a port cask. So, Josh, in the past, you were talking about...
Yeah, stuff from Colorado is meh. To be honest, a little bit surprised that this Breck port cask beat out the Angel's Envy. So I'm glad we're doing this double blind.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that this was even an option. This is a little bit surprising to me. So yeah, pretty interesting.
Very much so. How did you pick that against number 3, though?
I think I have 3 written down. I have a 1 and a 3, and then a 1.
Okay,
So he picked Angel's Envy. Dan picked Angel's Envy, and you and I picked the Breck.
yeah,
Interesting.
that is very interesting. I thought it was good.
I was okay with it.
Yeah.
I put light alcohol aftertaste for number 3. I put light smell, a little flat. I don't know. I wasn't really impressed with 2 or 3 in this instance.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about...
Not very old. 3 years.
No.
That is pretty young. But again, a lot of times with ryes, you don't have to age it for as long because the high rye content tends to grab a hold of that wood a little quicker than the corn, and it tastes finished at an earlier age than a bourbon does.
Well, I wish I could say that I loved one of those and I'm going to go out and buy it, but I didn't. And as you can see, I mean, I think here, if you want to ever really see, if you're watching YouTube and you want to see what Dan likes and doesn't like, don't listen to me. Watch my glasses. You know, in our other episode, empty glass, can I get a little bit more? Dan liked that one. You know, these haven't barely been touched. Just sips out of them. You guys should finish them. I didn't like them.
Yeah, I finished the one that I liked.
Yeah, I did too.
The others I was generally okay with. So I'm right there with you, Dan.
Yeah.
That three of them were just okay for me. But there was one that was a runaway winner.
I agree. And that was the Angel's Envy rye, finished in the rum, and Josh and I thought it was delicious. Dan also picked it, though. He said that was his...
Of the four, yeah. And like I said, I wasn't bad. If I came over here and you said, here, try this, I'd drink it, and I'd be okay with it, but I just think you can do better. But
do better. I feel it's like a parenting version of, hey, like you're talking to the bourbon industry. Do better.
Right. Right. I mean, are we doing too much now? I don't know, unless you love that stuff. But I do know some friends that love Angel's Envy.
Yeah.
And I have some friends that like beer that has all kinds of really silly flavors in it.
Bless you.
You know, so I'm just one person, but just not me.
Yeah.
Meh. Like the kids go meh.
I think I can see it comparing up to other ones, though. It could stand out on its own, being like, ooh, really sweet and real.
So do you think in a monthly, so this will be at week 15, it'll come back?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, because it will be the March. It'll go up against other weekly March winners and become.
So you think
potentially
this has a chance to win in a week? Month 3, week 15.
I could see it. I really did enjoy it. I really liked that sweet along with the spice.
Okay.
Like it, like maple syrup. Like how can you not like maple syrup or fried chicken?
Right. But this morning we were out and we seen that Knob Creek maple, and you hated that one. You said
that was way too much like maple syrup.
Way too
though.
much. Okay.
That's like maple syrup and then pouring some bourbon in it.
Okay.
And drinking it. This one, it's strictly bourbon. You don't get the viscosity of
Just
like the maple syrup. It's just, but it gives you that undertone flavor of maple syrup.
Okay.
So it's not too much. Yeah. Great question though. Well, we have the winner. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.